Okay, just a very quick intro to this video. I had no real intention of making this little burner, but I'm so bored. I've been off work for 2 weeks now. 2 weeks today I had my operation, and as you can see it's healed. That's all it is, that little scar from there to there. That's it. So it's healed, but it's still very, very painful. I've still got no feeling in those three fingers. So I've been back to the hospital today and they're not particularly hopeful. They said that if it is just nerve damage, which I'm hoping it is, then it'll take a very long time. So whether they've actually improved it since the last 14 months, I don't know, but that's how long I've had it already and it hasn't improved, so we'll just have to wait and see. Anyway, my hand's still very weak, got no real grip, so I'm struggling. I haven't done any horses yet. Last Friday I had a guy in to help me out. I say help me out, he did all my work for me. I drove him round and he did all the horses for me. He's very good and he's coming in again tomorrow. So that's keeping my horse work sort of at bay. But I'm still bored. I've been doing a bit of cooking around the house and I don't know, just fiddling a bit of bookwork and stuff like that. But I still getting bored, even just walking the dog. So this morning I went into the workshop and I intended to just have a little fiddle around. I sharpened up all my shoeing tools, my knives, snips, stuff like that, and then I just suddenly had this idea about making a burner. I've seen them loads of times and I've always fancied making one. I don't know if you've seen the video of my potbelly stove. That wasn't very successful. I wanted something that I could use in the workshop to heat the workshop, but the potbelly one is so smoky and it doesn't really draw very well, so you spend all your time trying to stoke it up and get it going and stop it smoking. So anyway, I thought I'd give this one a go. I can take it out with me if I go out, use it out the back of the truck, if we go out anywhere, make a cup of tea. So anyway, that's the intro to this little video, so watch and enjoy. Okay, so I've cut 2 lumps of 4-inch box section, no particular length. I hadn't got anything in mind. I just grabbed my tape measure and sort of randomly cut 2 lumps off. I hadn't got an awful lot, so I couldn't do it too long and I didn't want it too big. So this one's 14-inch and this one is 10. So what I've got to do, the short one, I want to sort of miter into the long one. I've got to do it, you can see I've already marked it if I can get it the right way around, at about 45 degrees. So I've got to cut that off and then weld that into the side, but I want to weld it a bit up so that the base gives me somewhere for the ash to go, and then I shall cut a hole in the side, weld the two together. This will give me plenty of room for a bit of mesh to go in the bottom that the fire will actually sit in, so as I say the ash can fall through and sit on the bottom, so I don't have to keep emptying it every 5 minutes. Now I'm going to cut it with a grinder, basically because I can't be bothered to get the plasma cutter out, and it's only 1/8 wall box section, so it shouldn't take much time at all. And I've got plenty of discs, so I'm not worried about wearing them out, plus it gives a bit of a neater finish. I have to apologise for the video today. A couple of times I turned the video off when I thought I'd actually turned it on, so it's a bit disjointed. Well, you'll probably see where it is. And also I got halfway through, or a fair way through, the first battery died, and then the second battery died, so it's a little bit cramped up towards the end because I was running out of a battery and I wanted to get all this done today. So that's the first half of it. these inox discs, supposed to be for stainless steel, I don't know why, but they seem to sell them for mild steel. They're pretty good. They last much longer than the old-fashioned discs. The old-fashioned ones used to, you know, you put them in and they puff into a ball of dust. But these actually last pretty well. And they're only, I'm not sure if they're the 1mm or the 0.8, but either way, they're pretty good. I think I'm going to have to change my disc there. That one's just about had it. And it wasn't a full disc when I started. So just see if we can whip that off. And when you put your disc back on, always put the writing away from you. I've no idea why, but it says on the packet, so that's what I do. Carry on with this one. This is I think it's a 4-inch disc. They obviously come in various different sizes. I think all my grinders are 4-inch. I might have one 5-inch, but I just buy, no, 4.5-inch. That's it. They're 4.5, not 4. So there's just, I remember now, they're bigger than the 4, but not as big as the 5. So yeah, 4.5-inch. Was it 125 or something or other? Or is that 5-inch? Yeah, that's 5-inch, I think. 115, that's it, got it. 115. 4.5. Nearly there. So it doesn't take long to whip through. You've got to go steady, but if I'd really thought about it, I would have set the plasma cutter up, but as I said in the introduction, I didn't really know I was going to do this today. And the place is a bit of a mess. I couldn't be bothered to pull the plasma cutter out. So there you go. I'm just going to give it a quick tidy up. That's a pretty good 45. Just run the grinder over it. Take any nasty rough edges off. Although, as I say, they're not too bad because the grinding disc gives a fairly good cut. Now I'm just going to stick a file inside, take the burrs off. You do get a few little bits of burr, and for no other reason than when you pick it up you don't cut your fingers. Just take those edges off. Right, now this is where my first battery died, so that's how it was cut. And I turned the camera around, let you have a look at this, and the battery died. So it was about 1.5 seconds, so I've extended it. But that's basically how it's going to go. Slightly up, so I've marked it, because I hadn't realised the battery had died, so I marked it. Well, I was telling you all about it. And that's where I'm going to cut it out. And then this is where I thought I'd turned the camera off, and I'd actually turned it on, or vice versa. So I'm fiddling about thinking it's off, and it's actually on. So this bit's a little bit higgledy-piggledy, but basically that's where I'm going to cut it. Now I've thought it was on while I was cutting the first 3 sides, and obviously it wasn't. And now I'm just going to cut the last side out. And that's a bit boring, so I've skipped out the middle a bit of that. Right, and I think that's when I suddenly realised that I'd cocked up the camera settings. Anyway, we'll knock this bit out. It's just caught on the corners where you can't quite get the grinder in. See if it's hot. No, it's okay. Right, so there's my hole. And that's where the other bit wants to butt into. So that's how it's going to go. Just like that, as Tommy Cooper would say. Try and get them nice and flush. So I'm just going to get a few tacks on these after I've taken the worst of the rust off. This is a rusty old bit of box. It's been sitting in my workshop for probably, I don't know, 10 or 15 years. It used to be a leg on a staircase. It was sort of like that. It was the landing where the staircase went up to the landing. There was a leg sticking out and down to the ground just to support the landing. And the staircase got taken down and cut up, and I kept the leg as a handy bit of box section, which I never used until now. Well, I say I've never used. I've used a few inches here and there over the years. I've got about, I don't know, after today, I've got about 2 foot left, if that, probably a foot left. 18 inches maybe. So it hasn't done bad over the years. Right, let's clean that up. It's always much nicer to weld onto clean metal. I'm just going to try and line this up so it's relatively flush. Give it a tack. Let's make sure we've got gas coming through. A few tacks. It's not quite level, but it'll do. That's it. That'll hold it for now. Down there is going to be a bit tricky in that V, but I think we'll manage. If I had a narrower nozzle for my MIG, I'll put it on, but I haven't, so let's just whack it together. It's not arcing, so the bench, no, it's doing it again. That's it, it's arc now. We'll just quickly stitch this up. So I've always fancied making one of these. I've seen loads of them. I love the idea. Just suddenly thought we'll give it a go. It's not too strenuous. It's not doing my hand any real damage. Not like the horses would. It's amazing how I use both hands when I'm shoeing. Even just pulling shoes off, snipping the hoof off. You use your both hands all the time. Anyway, so we'll whack this together. In fact, I probably won't bother showing you the other two sides. Boring as hell watching me weld. Just burnt a hole in me blooming coat. Right, now this I'm going to use for the air, but I want to cut it down because I don't want it that big. So I'm going to slice it down to about just over half thickness, and then that's going to slide into the tube for the air. I'm going to put this little bit of mesh on the top there so that the fire sort of sits on top of that, and that will give me a nice little bit of couple of inches or so at the bottom for the ash to build up in, so I'm not constantly emptying it. It can fill up in that little base. So I'm just going to tack that on there first to make sure it'll all go in. So it's got to go up through that there, and it will, so I better check that before I put it on. See if we can get it lined up so I can get it at a about the right sort of angle. Make sure it's arcing. Couple of tacks. So I've got my glove on now on my left hand because it's giving me a bit of jip, even though I'm only halfway through this. I haven't been doing a lot. But there you can see that's exactly what I want. So once that's slipped in there, that will sit there. The fire will be on top of that, and it will give me that couple of inches or so. Let's see exactly what it is. Just under 3 inches to fill up with ash. So let's cut that down now that I've seen that the sort of got the principle. Alright, so I cut it down. I didn't bore you with the cutting, it's just more angle grinding. I haven't cut it off the bit of box yet because I want to make sure exactly how long I need. So let's stick it up the hole and see what happens. It's catching on the bits on the bench. There you go, that's it. Goes in a treat. And actually, I didn't judge it too far off. So I'll just mark that where I want to cut it. Make sure it's still going into the bottom, which it is. Going right the way down. Yep. So we'll cut that off. Along there. Again, I'll just whip that off quickly with the grinder. Everything's been done by grinder and welder today. Right, so because this bit of box is only 90mm and the other bit's 100, no, it's actually only 80mm and it's about 90 something inside, so we've got a bit of a gap down the sides. So to fill that up so that the stuff doesn't fall down the edges, I'm just going to put this bit of 5/16 rod down, cut 2 bits and put one down each side, just at the top, so this still get air down the sides, but it'll stop ash and bits of wood falling down there. Right, so I cut them, so I'll stick it back in and try and get them all lined up in the, so it's sort of central. That's about it, I think. Looks about right to me. Everything's done by eye. And I cut another bit, so it's going to go in the bottom below the mesh, so that the heat doesn't distort the mesh and it drops. So it's got something to actually sort of sit on, because heat can do funny things to bits of metal. I'm just going to tack these up, get them in place. Now I haven't really sort of got any plans for this. It's all been done as I go. So you may well find I've made complete cock-ups of various bits, or you might say, oh, you should have done this because it'd be easier, or you should have done this because of that, and all the rest of it. But yes, you could well be right, but all my stuff's done a bit hit and miss, or most of it. Some stuff I do actually plan, but this wasn't planned at all today. Right, so that's where I'm going to put the little bit of rod. Just going to stick it in there, so that when that goes in, that mesh has got something to sit on. I'll just tack that in. I'm going to put quite a bit of weld on this because, as I say, the heat can distort bits of bar that aren't fully, or not necessarily fully welded, but securely welded with lots of tacks. If I just tacked at either end, the middle quite likely would bow. with the heat. So that's got that in. Put a magnet up there because it keeps falling over. It's sort of front heavy. So there you go. That sits in there nicely. Drops on top of that. So now I'm just going to put a load of tacks. You can see what I mean about it front heavy. I'm just going to put a load of tacks along this bit of 5/16 for the very reason I just said, just to stop it distorting. I don't need to be fully welded, that's overkill, but it does need to be tacked quite frequently, so heat can do weird things to bits of bar. I'm hoping this is going to work. I've got no sort of working plans, or I've never tried it out as a... There you go, just tack down that side, just turn it over and do the same down the back. Yeah, I've got no working plans for this, so I might get all this done and find that it doesn't actually blooming well work. But we'll see. I'm just having a bit of fun today. Keeping the boredom at bay. I have got some curtain rails that are finished and need to go off to the powder coaters, but they've gone a bit rusty sitting in here, and the grinder with my wire brush on vibrates so much because I think the wheel's out of line that it really giving my hand some sticks. So I can't really clean them up to take them down the powder coaters. Right, I'm just going to tidy those ends up, get them all flush. So I've done that, just giving it a grind off. So it's all now sitting fairly flush. So I've got to think about putting a base in. I don't need to do any more to the bottom, welding wise. So I'm going to try and use this bit that I cut out. So I don't like waste, so I'm going to just try and cut that to size, stick that in there. It's a bit short one way. See if I've got a wider bit that end. So I can cut it so it's tight one way, but it'll have a few little gaps the other way, but good old welder will fill them up. So I'm just going to quickly whip that off and get it to fit in the hole. Right, I've just cleaned it up, tapped it in, so it's just a tight fit. I'm just going to put a tack on each corner, and then I'll run around it with a welder, fully weld it. So it's only 1/8 this material. It should be ample for the amount of times I'm going to use this thing. In fact, you'd probably get the amount of times I'm going to use it, you'd probably get away with 14 gauge, but this is all I've got at the moment. I'll whiz down here. Just turn it over. Whiz down it the other way. Stick it on my magnet. Tell you what, these magnets are worth their weight in horse shit. They really are. They were very cheap. They're £75 pull, so they're pretty strong if you get them on a good surface. And they really do hold well. They're dead handy for little jobs like this, and I think you may have seen them in my other videos of making the jugs and the hand moulds and things like that. They really are handy, and because they're so cheap, you know, if you wreck them, it doesn't matter, chuck them out, buy another one. Right, that's got the base. Give it a quick brush up, some of the muck off. So this is thick with rust, this bit of box, but put the magnet on it again to hold it where it is. Right, so we can assemble it. So what's next? I want to put these bits across the top like that somehow to put your pots on. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to let them into the bit of box section. Oh, drop one. But I'm going to cut them, and then I also might put a flap over the front. I'm not quite sure yet whether I'll need to cut off the air from the top so that it goes down through the bottom part, or whether I might even need to cover it off completely. So I'm going to make a little flap of some description, but I'm not going to hinge it or do anything fancy with it at the moment because it might not actually work, or I might not need it. So anyway, these bits, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to mark them in the middle and cut halfway through both, and hopefully they'll slot over each other. Mark down to the middle. In theory, that'll work. Let's have a little look, see where the middle is. It's about there. Of course, I didn't cut these particularly to any length, so they're a really odd length. So I've got to find the middle of some bizarre amount. Let's get me scribe down the middle. That's about it there. Actually, I don't know why I'm scribing both, or even marking both, because I'm going to put them both together in the vise and cut them as one, which I suddenly thought of as I was about to put it in the vise, which is why I must have marked them. I can't get them to sit straight. This is where this bloody hand lets me down. Right, let's rock and roll. Everything, as I say, is grinding. And that disc has had it. That's the second one today. Well, actually no, it's 1.5. So I'm just going to quickly change that. Right, and I've changed it, and I managed to find a very old disc which is quite thick. It is about 1/8 of an inch thick. So hopefully I'll just put one cut through here rather than having to try and put two tiny cuts or two narrow cuts. I'll just put one with a thicker disc. And there you go, look at that. It's not quite deep enough, but you get the idea. You see it's just sticking up about 1/8 of an inch, if that. So I've just got to take it apart, whip it down a little bit more. And while I'm at it, I'll just cut into the box section. I haven't let it into the 1/8, only the box section. So the 1/8 is just sitting down in there, and it's actually gone in quite tight. It's sort of hammered in, so I can get it out if I want to replace it, but it's sitting in there quite nicely on its own. Right, so I made this flap, just bent up a little bit of 14 gauge. I'm not going to hinge it or put it on or do anything with it at the moment. It just sits over there quite nicely on its own, because as I say, I don't know if I'm going to need it. We're going to try it out and see what happens. So let's light her up. Might put a little handle on it across there, but if I need it, if it actually is any use. So we've lit her up. I've had to actually tack it to the bench because it is top or front heavy, so I'm going to have to put some feet on. So I just stuck a couple of bits of wood in there, and it lit up ever so easily. So I'll just cover this up and see, and you can see it goes a bit smoky straight away. Really smoky, and you can look down in there and it's smoky. So I'm not actually sure. try it again. Yeah, again it's very smoky. You see immediately it picks up. I take my hand away, so I'm not actually sure whether this bottom bit is drawing or whether it's just drawing through the top. And that might be a waste of time. Stick a bit of cardboard in. Yeah, so I'm not sure. I think I'm gonna have to play with it a bit. It's certainly hot, and that's only been on a couple of minutes with a couple of little bits of wood in. I dare say if I stoked it right up with some fairly decent bits of wood, it may draw better underneath, or it may not. I don't know. So I'm going to have to play about with it, but I don't think at the moment I'm going to need that cover. So we'll let it run for a little while and see. Get it hot. Yeah, quite like that. That's good because there's very little smoke when it's running like that. Once this bit, the actual sort of chimney gets hot, or the upright, that may draw even better. As I say, with a lot of material in. So anyway, I'm going to stick some feet on it, give it a coat of paint, and there we are. Right, so what I've done, just 3 big nuts welded on the bottom, so I can screw the legs in so they can come out, so easy to transport. So I've given it a quick coat of paint, high resistant 600-degree temperature paint, and there you go. I'm going to try it out fairly soon. I don't know when exactly, but I'm sure I will do a video of it and let you see the results. Should be good. Anyway, thanks for watching. We'll catch you on the next one.